Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a multi-class build guide for the Bard and Rogue in Baldur's Gate 3. So this is a pretty powerful class because the Bard itself is powerful, and adding in some of the usefulness from the Rogue is going to make this build really great. So for our cantrips, we can take something like Vicious Mockery and Blade Ward. If you're the face of your party, if this is for like your Tav or Dark Urge, I'd recommend taking Friends. This is a really useful cantrip for just overall if you're the face of the party. Also, Minor Illusion has some usability to group enemies together if you want to drop like a fireball. For the spells that we'll be taking at level 1, if you don't have anyone on your party that has Long Strider, this is a really nice one to take because increasing movement speed by 3. This is a ritual, so you can cast it. It doesn't require concentration, so it is pretty nice. Dissonant Whispers is a spell. Frighten a creature and they'll have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, and they cannot move. This is a pretty powerful spell that the Bard gets, so we're going to keep that one on. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is a pretty decent one, but it is a concentration. It'll leave a creature prone with laughter. Personally, I think that using Healing Word is pretty great. If you have a teammate that's downed, you can use this to bring them back up without having to run over to them, so that's pretty useful there. Disguise Self can be quite nice too if you have a need for it, and obviously like Speak with Animals is pretty useful, but I think that Long Strider is a pretty great one. Fairy Fire, all targets within the light turn visible and attack rolls will have advantage. It's pretty useful too. I also am personally a fan of Thunderwave because the pushback from this can be really nice and you can knock some people off of cliffs, so something like that. Bane is somewhat useful too, but starting instrument, we'll go with like a lyre or a violin. It's really up to you. Now for the ability points, this is where things get interesting for this build. So there's a few different ways we can do this. I have the strength gauntlets on. We're not going to be focusing on strength. It's mostly going to be about dexterity. Dexterity is nice too, since we're going to be focusing on two-handed weapons. You're going to see how this will develop. But something like dumping wisdom and intelligence, don't love to do that, but taking our dexterity up to 16 and then taking our constitution up as well. Something like that would work great. I don't like leaving these on odd numbers. I always get comments on my videos saying that I shouldn't be doing that. So you can go something like this and then level them all out. Yeah, it's tricky because it's usually going to be one that's going to be at an odd number. Now, dexterity seems to be the better choice here, so we're going to keep our dexterity a little bit higher for more damage. Charisma is just for the checks, obviously, and as well as our spells. So something like that for stats works pretty well. Again, I don't like leaving it at 17. I get a comment every single video, every single time I leave it at 17. We're going to be using the Hag's Hair to take that up to 18. If you're the face of the party, I recommend doing that. There's also other ways to increase your stats, so even if it is an odd number, it's okay. It's going to work out in the end. Now for our spells at level 2, we don't really have a whole lot of options here. Sleep is a good one because this can be spread between multiple enemies. So let's say there's 3 goblins that have low health. You can put them all to sleep and just not even have to worry about them. So it is pretty nice crowd control. And that's pretty much it for Bard level 2. We also get the Jack of all trades. We had half of a proficiency bonus to ability checks that you're not proficient in. And we also get Song of Rest, so this gives us an extra short rest. Really nice if you have a warlock on the team to allow them to get their spell slots back. So we're going to go with that for our level 2. This build really comes alive at like level 5, but we'll get into how this is built in a moment. For our level 2 spell slots, Heat Metal is a pretty nice one. Cast Metal causes disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. It's a concentration. It deals a good amount of damage. I'm also a fan of Clouded Daggers. There's nothing wrong with this one. Area of effect damage. You can put it in a doorway. And the enemies will just run right through it, so that's pretty nice. College of Lore. The Lore Bard gives you Cutting Words, which use your wit to distract a creature and sap its confidence. But we're going to be going with the College of Swords here because ranged flourishes are incredibly powerful. So we got a few different options. We have the Slashing Flourish, which allows us to hit multiple enemies at once. This is really nice to have. You can also target the same enemy twice, so that's pretty good. We also got Defensive Flourish, will increase our armor class by 4, and then also the range, which will teleport you to the target. So for fighting style, we got either dueling or 2-weapon fighting. I think the 2-weapon fighting is a clear winner here. Dueling is okay, but we're going to be using 2 weapons, so 2-weapon fighting, obvious choice here. We're using dual crossbows and dual weapons, which I'll get into at the end of this video. When you make an attack with your offhand weapon, you're going to add your ability modifier to the damage. That's pretty nice. And that's that for level 3 Bard. The Bard really is a jack of all trades. It does a lot of everything. No master, but I guess it is kind of a master of some things, damage. We're going to take Mage Hand for our next cantrip. That's not a bad one to have to throw potions around. For our level 2 spell slot, we're going to go with Enhance Ability. Can be pretty nice. It'll give you advantage on ability checks, which can be quite useful at certain points in the game. I'm a fan of that. I also like Enthrall. Reduce a creature's peripheral vision, make it look at you. Not for this build, but we're going to go with Heat Metal or Hold Person. I think Hold Person's my favorite of the two here. Because crowd control is super effective. Any attacks on this from 3 meters will be critical hits, which is super useful. And the bird is kind of about crowd control as well. We do get ourselves a feat here, so this is where things can become pretty fun. We could use the ability improvement, take our dexterity up. But I do think that the best way to go about doing this is by taking Sharpshooter. This is one of the most underrated, actually probably well rated. This gives us a -5 to our attack roll, so less likely to hit, but we get an additional 10 damage. And since we're using dual crossbows, this damage adds up really quickly. It's nice. Sharpshooter can make this build very powerful, and you're going to see why once we get into adding in the rogue. So at level 5, we get the Font of Inspiration. All your bardic inspirations are returned after long or short rest. And the bonuses gained from Bardic Inspiration goes to a 1d8, so even better. That's what we like to see. We also get our level 3 spell slots here. Hypnotic Pattern can be a nice, kind of like a fireball style of crowd control. They cannot attack you, they cannot move or act. I personally think that Glyph of Warding can be pretty powerful. It's kind of like a mini fireball, and you can choose the damage type, so that's quite nice. Stinking Cloud can be okay if you know how to use it. It stops enemies from taking action, so you can cause complete shutdown of teams. But I do think Glyph of Warding for the damage that it brings is much better. So we're gonna go with that for level 5 Bard, and we're gonna continue on down the Bard spells here. Something like Plant Growth can be nice too for crowd control. Make weeds burst from the ground. Creatures moving through the weeds have their movement speed quartered, which really great because you can slow down enemies big time. So something like that. Stinking Cloud can be decent for crowd control, or Hypnotic Pattern. Take one of those 3. I do think that Plant Growth is kind of my favorite for this because it can really shut down teams from getting to your team. So if you have a lot of casters, this can be great. At Bard level 7, we're going to be getting our next level spell. So we can get level 4 Confusion. Confuse a group of enemies, cause them to attack at random, wander around aimlessly, and occasionally skip turns in Stupor. This is a concentration, but it's a powerful one. Again, it's similar to Fireball, large area of effect. Polymorph is okay. Greater Invisibility is okay. Freedom of Movement. Dimension Door is nice for moving around, taking an ally with you, but I think that Confusion really is the better of the spells here. It's a great crowd control, and I think that having crowd control is kind of the main focus of the Bard, especially as we're going to be adding in the Rogue, and this is all about just damage, really. So for our next level 4 spell slot, I think that Dimension Door can be pretty nice just to have too, so we're going to go with that. We'll replace spell, leave it as is, and then we get another ability improvement. So this is nice. We can go with something like Medium Armor Master. When you wear Medium Armor, it doesn't impose disadvantage on stealth checks. The bonus armor class you gain from Dexterity modifier becomes 3 instead of 2. That can be pretty useful. It'll take our armor class up a little bit further. I'm also a fan of going with something like, obviously, ability improvement. We'll take our dexterity up even higher, or our charisma. Alert is great too to increase our initiative. So something like that. Ideally, we'd have the Hag's Hair, and then we're going to pump our dexterity up to 20 with that. Ignore that it's an odd number. I'm guaranteed to get at least one comment about that. But here's the final level of Bard. We're only going to level 9 Bard. Now, this gives us our level 5 spells, which is nice and very useful too, but I think that adding in something else is going to be even better. So I'm a big fan of Hold Monster. This will hold anything in place that's not undead, and undead will likely die from like a paladin or cleric if you have them on your team. So something like this can be very useful because it'll allow critical hits on enemies, and it is a really nice just crowd control. Having the ability to shut down a monster can be really huge. You can just pop this on someone and then have your whole team just jump them. Makes it really nice. So that's that for the Bard. At level 10, it is really nice to go here and get the magical secrets. You could potentially go here. I recommend taking Counterspell if you're going to go this route, and then Conjure Elemental. Conjure Elemental doesn't require concentration. It's a great use of a level 5 spell slot because you can pop in just a literal elemental that'll help you with distracting aggro and things like that. It can be quite nice, but I also think that we have a different build here that's going to work out just as well with a different focus. Not saying a level 10 Bard is bad, just we're going to be focusing on something a little different here. So we're going to take the Rogue, and this will give us skill proficiencies there. So we're going to bump ahead here, and then level 2, we get ourselves the Cunning Actions, which allows us to use the bonus action to hide, dash, or disengage. And then this is where the build gets its final kind of choice on what we're going to go ahead with here. So, subclass, Thief. I think the Thief is the best choice here. Reason being, an extra bonus action is huge. This makes it so much better than some other classes, because we're using dual crossbows, so we can go doom, doom, shoot, and then shoot again, which is really nice. Assassin does have some benefits of advantage on attack rolls against creatures that haven't taken a turn yet. And a successful attack on a surprise creature is a critical, and then we restore our action, bonus action at the start of combat. Assassin can be nice, but I think Thief is better for the reasons I mentioned. Getting that extra bonus action is really nice, and we're going to go into the, I guess, the deeper parts of this build. So looking into what we got for items, we have a nice armor class of 20 here. We're going to be using the Helldusk helmet, so this is a pretty nice one. It gives you vision and magic and darkness up to 12 meters. You cannot become blinded, plus 2 to saving throws against spells, and cannot be critical hit, plus immolating gaze, which can frighten the target. Cloak of Protection gives us a +1 to armor class and saving throws. Yuan-Ti Scale Mail, so this adds your full dexterity modifier to your armor class, and this is why we want to pump up our dexterity as much as possible, and you don't get disadvantage on stealth ability checks, and we get a +1 initiative rolls, which is really nice. I like having the Gauntlets of Hill Giant Strength to give us a saving throw +1 on strength, and also set our strength to 23, so it gives us a better jump distance, which is pretty useful as a thief if you want to move around. We do have Dimensional Door, though, for movement's sake, but it's also nice just to have another option there. So strength, you don't need those gauntlets. I want to make that clear. It's definitely not necessary. Gloves of the Growling Underdog gives you advantage on melee attack rolls when surrounded by 2 enemies. It can be pretty useful. Cantrips that can cost an action cause a bonus action instead. That can also be pretty nice just to have on, because we do have some cantrips that we'd like to use, like Vicious Mockery. So yeah, there's some different options we go with for gloves. Helldusk boots are pretty nice too. You don't get affected by difficult terrain. When you fail a saving throw, you can use reaction to succeed. And then Hellcrawler, which allows us to teleport and do fire damage. For weapons, I think they're the 2 best. Bloodthirst, which gives us improved critical, so higher chance of hitting a critical. And then creatures hit with this will receive vulnerability to piercing damage, which these are both piercing damage. So we basically double our damage on them from using this. And this is a bound weapon as well. We're also going to be putting this in the offhand, which will deal additional 1 to 4 piercing against targets with less than 50% of their health. And the Crimson Weapon offhand, when you make an attack with your offhand weapon, you can add your ability modifier, which you do get from the dual wield or the 2 weapon fighting. So you can switch these around and go with something like this to give yourselves, when you make an attack with advantage, the target takes an additional 7 piercing damage. And then when a creature misses you with a melee attack, you may retaliate and gain True Strike. So it's a riposte. Pretty nice. So either way there. And for our archery weapons, I like the Hellfire hand crossbow. This is very powerful. Inflicts burning when hitting a creature from hiding or invisible, which we can go into hiding. So great synergy there. And alongside the hand crossbow, there is a crossbow that will, if the target is burning, it'll deal an additional 1d4 damage. I'd recommend grabbing that. I just don't have it on this playthrough. I also like the Surgeon Subjugation Amulet alongside Killer Sweethearts. That gives us a critical hit after getting a kill, and then that critical hit will turn into Paralyze. This can be very, very powerful. And then the Caustic Band just adds 2 acid damage. Damage Rider to all of our attacks. Can be quite useful. So that is a pretty powerful Bard class, multi-class with the Rogue. Our main focus of this would be to be doing our slashing ranged flourish. So attack twice, and then attack twice, and then we're going to be using our offhand attacks. That's 5 attacks right there. If you want to go hog wild, we could add 2 levels of fighter into here, and that gives us up to 9 attacks, which is crazy, but I will be doing a video on that later. I'm still build testing that one, so stay tuned, we'll have some more videos coming soon. But that's a pretty OP Bard Rogue build guide for in Baldur's Gate 3. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, please hit the subscribe button below, and I will see you all in the next video.